I won't deny it, I'm a straight rider. You don't wanna fuck with me. Got the police busting at me, but they can't do nothing to the G.
Let's get ready to rumble!
My ambitions as a rider. My ambitions as a rider. So many battlefield scars while driven in plus cars. This life is a rap star, it's nothing without God. Was born rough and rugged, addressing the mass public. My attitude was fuck it, these motherfuckers love it to be a soldier. Must maintain composure at ease, don't like it's complicated. Only what you make it to be.
Welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. This is the first episode in 2018. So, I'd like to wish you all a Happy New Year, first of all. I know it's been a week or two. Hope everything's gone well. Holidays have ended. I'm assuming school, college, university, work, whatever has started. And you've got a nice week behind you. For this year, I have big things planned for my channel, so stay tuned. What better way to kick off this year than reviewing a premium diecast model car? The diecast car you're looking at here is the 1/18th scale 5 Series BMW M5 of the F10 generation, made by Paragon. But as always, I'd like to begin by showing you the car, how it looks like in its box. And this is a pretty transparent and visible box without any kind of branding. As you can see, the only branding that we have is the BMW logo up here. Furthermore, the plate, the base that this car stands on, says BMW M5 on one side, and of course has the iconic M logo on the other. To find out more about the manufacturer, we'll have to turn this box upside down. But even here at the bottom, we cannot actually see who made the model, because on the left side it says collector's model, not a toy, and so on. And over here on the right, it just says made in China, content 1 piece, scale 1/18, BMW M5 Silverstone 2. And of course, the BMW shop is linked. So, without knowing that this is a model made by Paragon, there's actually no way to tell. And another funny thing about this model is that it shares the same kind of packaging and box as the I-Scale BMWs, which leads me to believe that Paragon and I-Scale are actually more or less one and the same company. It's just a conspiracy theory of mine, of course, because I don't have proof, but it's a bit like Maisto and Burago right now. At least that's my opinion. The F10 is the successor to the E60 and was sold from 2011 to 2017. This car was part of the 5 Series that also included the F07 5-door Gran Turismo Fastback, the F11 5-door Touring Estate Wagon, and the F18, an extended wheelbase sedan mostly for the Chinese market. February 2017 onward, this 5 Series F10 has been replaced by the new G30 5 Series. This is one of the heaviest diecast cars I own, but even in real life, the F10 M5 has a noticeably larger curb weight over the E60 M5 that it replaced, weighing in at about 2 tons. When it was brand new, in real life the car sold for approximately 100,000 euros. Reflecting this, the model car's retail price is also around 100 euros. But I was lucky to get this off CK Model Cars as they priced it at 60 euros. When I went to the Paragon section, pretty much every other Paragon model was 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, and so on. But for some reason, this one model they were selling for 60 euros, so I bought it. I'm going to put the link in the description below. And of course, I bought it at the end of November when they were having a Black Friday sale. So I got I think 20% discount on top of that. And I actually ended up paying just 51 euros. For 51 euros, this model car is an absolute steal. I would gladly pay 60, 70, 80, 85, maybe 90, but not more than that, because that's when you enter Kyosho territory. Still, this car has a lot to offer. So let's begin the review. Now, this is a color known as Silverstone Metallic, which is also the most common color that this Paragon model is made in. Other colors this model is available in are Monte Carlo Blue, Sakhir Orange, and a rare Alpine White. Not just Paragon, but also other manufacturers have made the F10 5 Series in diecast form. One of them is Norev, and the other one is Welly/GT Autos. So let's begin this review by taking a look at the front. With the F10, the M5 returns to the more traditional BMW exterior styling compared to the controversial styling of its E60 predecessor, which was the work of Chris Bangle. You know, the guy who gets pretty much crapped on by the entire BMW community. For instance, we have the return of rectangular-shaped kidney grills, as well as headlights reminiscent of the E39 generation. Here's a closer look at the bi-xenon headlamps, which are referred to as angel eyes, with LED indicators on either end. And this is also where we come to perhaps the biggest design flaw of this model car, and that is, unfortunately, the fact that it is located at the headlights. You can see at the right that there is this little soldering or gluing residue, which is the place where the plastic has been fixed to the car body. And this is something that every single Paragon M5 model has. So, of course, depending on the model that you get, it's going to be a little bit worse or a little bit better, but this problem will not go away. However, this is something that is only bothersome if you really zoom in. So at regular distances, it is really just a nitpick. You don't have this problem. And the car looks fantastic. Here's a close-up of the grills. As you can see, they are three-dimensional. They go all the way through. They are made out of chrome. Down here we have the German license plate. Not completely flawless. As you can see, a couple of white paint splotches underneath the D. And there's supposed to be the 12 stars of the European Union, which are for some reason missing here. But I'm not exactly sure whether they're supposed to be on all model cars except mine. Anyway, next to the M, and the M I think stands for the M5, you can see a little emblem. And that emblem is from the German state of Bayern, or Bavaria. When a smug Bavarian asks you what the colors on his flag are, never say blue-white, say white-blue. They always like to hear Weißblau instead of Blau-Weiß. Moving further down, one way you can tell that this is an M5 is because unlike the regular 5 Series F10, the M5 does not have fog lights. Instead, we have these completely redesigned air intakes more reminiscent of a sports car. Unfortunately, these air intakes are not perforated. You can see the headlight washers underneath each of the headlights. There are, however, no parking sensors whatsoever, neither on the front nor on the back of the car. So I guess that is a real design flaw of this particular model car. Moving up to the hood, we can see that it has these beautiful crease lines that start from the corners and run all the way to meet at the center, where we have a real raised BMW badge. Not a sticker or print, but an actual three-dimensional badge. So that's awesome. Now let's open the hood. You can see that the hood is not so easy to open because it sits so snugly to the rest of the car body. The easiest way to do this is to simply lift the car upside down. So I'll get back to you in a moment. The hood stays open, which is good. Also goes pretty far up. Now let's take a closer look at the engine. This is the first BMW M5 to be turbocharged. While the previous E60 M5 had a V10, the F10 M5 is powered by a 4.4-liter S63 twin-turbo V8 engine with 553 brake horsepower and redlining at 7,200 RPM. 0 to 100 km per hour in 4.4 seconds. Rear-wheel drive. The reason for the change from a bigger naturally aspirated engine to a smaller turbocharged engine is the increasingly stringent international CO2 emissions and fuel consumption regulations. The real car's new engine, however, now has cut CO2 emissions down by 25%, and the fuel economy has been improved by 30% over the E60 M5. The top speed is electronically limited to 250 km per hour. This is a recurring top speed limit for many German road cars, especially sedans. I believe it is a gentleman's agreement, that is to say, an informal and legally non-binding agreement between BMW, Audi, and Mercedes-Benz to reduce fatal collisions on the German Autobahn and not put pressure on the government to introduce speed limits on the unrestricted portions of the Autobahn. Keep in mind, though, that in the case of the M5, this speed limit could be increased to 305 km per hour if the M Drivers package was selected, which costs extra. Now let's move on to the side of the car. You can see this car features a contour line running along the sides and into the taillights. And up here we have the traditional Hofmeister Knick, which returns, as well as rear vent glass. Now let's go check out the rims. Just like the real M5, this diecast car features blue brake calipers and 19-inch BBS-style rims, although I would have preferred it to come with the split 5-spoke rims that you see in this picture. The brake discs are cross-drilled, which is good. And you can see the BMW logos in the center of the rims, as well as individual lug nuts surrounding it. The car does have suspension, but just a little bit, and more at the back than at the front, because the front is pretty low compared to the back. I wouldn't really test the suspension out too much though, because I'm going to show you a problem that this car has. I don't know if the other models have this. Now the problem with my car is that these wheels, they barely move. I mean, they only move if I actually manually do this. They don't spin at all. I don't know if this is just a problem with my car or whether this affects all the other Paragon models as well. Let me show you the front wheels. This one swivels more than it moves. You'll have to manually do this. So, unfortunately, all 4 wheels are affected by this. And this might be a deal killer to some people. This is my first Paragon model, so I don't really have much experience with others. Maybe they aren't meant to move or roll. But given the fact that this model will spend 99% of its time in its box mounted on the base, which gives it a little bit of a distance between the base and the way it is mounted, this shouldn't really be a problem. I mean, we are collectors at the end of the day. We don't play with these models. Now, moving on to the back of the car, the first thing that you'll really be able to appreciate are these huge taillights, which are done really nicely. I mean, they have replicated the design just as it is on the real car. The rear indicators sit on top, and we have the reflectors below. These are not painted, these are additional lights. So that's pretty cool. Now down here you can see the quad exhausts, and on my model, one of the exhausts is not colored in. But I think the situation can be rectified very easily if you take a Sharpie and draw in the missing black. The license plate is of course on the back as well. In the middle you have the BMW badge, and over to the right you have the M5 logo. Now this isn't a print, this is kind of a sticker which is slightly raised and 3-dimensional. Now let's take a look at the trunk. The trunk unfortunately does not stay open, so I'll have to hold it open, and I'm going to turn on the flash so you can see the interior. So you can see that this is actually a pretty roomy trunk, and there's even a small mechanism up there where you can pretty much bring down the seats, but I don't think you can do this on the model, it's just hinted at. There's carpeting in the trunk as well, which is good. Nothing else though. Moving up, we have a trunk lip spoiler here, incorporated into the body style of the car. Barely noticeable and yet there, so that's pretty cool. Now if you look at the rear windshield, you'll see all these defroster lines running along the length of it. That's pretty cool as well. You also see the speaker system indicated here. These are probably also used for the fake engine exhaust sounds. Now what do I mean by this? Because of its good insulation from exterior noise, as well as having swapped the naturally aspirated V10 for a twin-turbo V8, The F10M5 uses an artificial method known as active sound design that plays a fake engine sound through the car's audio system. And up here we have the shark fin antenna. Here's the beautiful sunroof through which you can see into the interior, but we'll get to that soon. Now before we move on to the interior, I just gotta tell you something about how this car arrived. When I first unboxed this car, the interior actually looked like this. So the doors, the front doors and the rear doors, they were all held in place by a set of hooks on either side of the door handles on the interior, with an elastic band spanning between these metal hooks, which means that if you tried to open the door from the outside, it would snap back. Now, this is really annoying because what you'd actually have to do is you'd have to cut the elastic band by sliding in a knife through the gap between the door and the car body, rather than try to unhook one end of the band with your fingers, because I don't know about you, but my fingers aren't that thin, and I prefer to slide in a thin pair of scissors and cut the band very carefully than to try and unhook that. Anyway, I managed to unhook both bands without any kind of damage, but I was always worried about the hooks kind of like snapping and then hitting the windows and maybe scratching them up or something. There was no reason for Paragon to do this. I mean, pretty much all other manufacturers except AutoArt simply use like stickers with which they shut the doors, and you can just remove the stickers on the outside, transparent stickers, and throw them away, and then you'll be able to open the doors. Anyway, really weird system. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's take a look at the interior. Right, so let's begin as usual by going to the front passenger side first. The interior of this car is kept in a kind of a light gray color. This includes the interesting dashboard trim texture that you can see right here. You can see that the door hinges are not your budget manufacturer dogleg hinges, but more sophisticated ones. Just a quick look at the door. You can see the door handles, as well as a little storage compartment down here. And of course we have the M5 door sill branding. Here's a look at the dash. You can see the stereo, the LCD screen, the dual zone climate control, the automatic 7-speed dual clutch transmission with the iDrive multimedia button right next to the 7-speed auto. Moving on to the rear passenger on this side. You can see the TV screens at the back. It's just a sticker, of course. We have the seats, and we have the climate control for the rear passengers over here, including buttons that are painted, which is pretty good. Now let's move on to the other side. Here we have a 3-spoke steering wheel. The power steering is electric instead of hydraulic. Unfortunately, the instrument panel at the back is just one big sticker. And up there we have the sun visors. And here's a look at the driver's side door with the power window switches. One problem I have with this car is that the front seats aren't seamless. You can see there's this line running along them. However, even in real life, the seats have 2 layers. Here you can see the sunroof from the bottom and what appears to be cabin lights for the rear passengers. You got nice seat belts. They don't have the hole in the middle though. The steering wheel does correspond with the front wheel swiveling from side to side, but I try not to move these wheels too much on this diecast model, because when I do that, it sort of strains the suspension because of the weight of this model. This is just so heavy that it's really taken a strain on, especially the front wheels. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. Notice how the camber on the wheels has increased when the car is supported by the wheels. If I remove the weight, you'll see that the camber adjusts itself. But if I let the car go, the camber becomes more noticeable. This means that the suspension is actually not strong enough to support this car's weight. Now, this isn't a problem when the car is mounted on its base, because there's, as I mentioned earlier, a little distance between the base itself and the wheels. So as you can see here, I'm showing how the steering wheel is corresponding to the front wheel swiveling from side to side, but I'm doing that without putting any weight on the front wheels to not strain the suspension. And here's a quick look at the underside of the model. You can see that it says BMW M5 at the bottom. Doesn't even say anything about the scale or even about the manufacturer, which is Paragon. However, we do have a lot of detail going on here. As you can see, the drive shaft is kept in a brushed aluminum finish. You've got the limited slip differential in here. Got the mufflers, quad exhaust. Pretty cool. So I hope you guys liked this review. As I mentioned earlier, I am completely happy with my purchase because I got it at a big discount, and paying 60 euros, 70, 80, maybe even 90 is definitely worth it for a four-door sedan where everything opens, as you can see right here. However, this model does have its problems. For example, the trunk doesn't stay open. Those glue residues I mentioned concerning the headlights. This is actually a replacement model that I got because the first one had a little bit of glue residue on the taillights, as well as small like scratches over here and over here, because it kind of felt like as if someone had smashed the trunk into the rear windshield, although on my model it's not possible. So my replacement model, which is this one that I'm reviewing, does not have these problems. Anyway, I'm happy with my purchase. I hope you guys liked this video. I hope it helped you if you're thinking about getting this model. And I'll see you next time. This is Imperial Diecast signing out.
Competition got me blitzed on that bullshit they stressing. I'm a rhyme though, clown hoes like it's mandatory. No plus no glory, my nigga bitch got the game distorted. Now it's on and it's on because I said so. Can't trust the bitch in the business, so I got with Dan, bro. Now these money hungry bitches getting suspicious. Started plotting and planning on the scheme to come and trick us. But thug niggas be on point and game tight.